OpenAI was generating 25 billions when nearly double for Anthropic at 47 billion. Business model of Anthropic is already profit making when OpenAI is not. A simple bot, I would say, with ChatGPT, but now with Anthropic you have clearly your ecosystem interacting, sending email, calling, organizing your agenda. The capacity of adoptions of everyone to use an Agentic AI, and it will push naturally in the direction of Anthropic.
Welcome back to Merrill Talks. Today we're discussing OpenAI and Anthropic, two big IPO names that we're expecting, the market is expecting, and we're looking forward to discussing them. So let's get straight into the video. So, Mark, thanks for joining today.
Hi, thanks Mike. Hi everyone.
To get straight into the topic at hand, Mark, how about we talk about the company that, so to speak, everyone thinks started it all, right? How about you discuss that a bit for us?
Yes, I mean, I will say the post-child of COVID, ChatGPT and generative AI, which it's interesting, as we know, we all passed the COVID, and this push to work at home, pushing, I will say, a big in the directions of IT and I think generative AI. If we give some figures here for our audience, Mike, I mean, in 5 days, when ChatGPT released its first model, it was reaching 1 million users. 2 months later, 100 million users. And I will say now we have like 900 million users who are actively using ChatGPT since 2022. In the space of IT, you can consider like a dinosaur, because 2022, it's not far away for us, about the IT, how's the things going, especially at the moment. I think it's a long time ago. So definitely they have the advantage of be the first one. But again, we will discuss here where do we stand now.
Sure, Mark. And I mean, now that you mentioned OpenAI, maybe I think it's worthwhile to discuss the differences between the companies, so OpenAI and Anthropic. What are your thoughts in terms of how they differ?
Definitely OpenAI, even the name, you can imagine it's a closed company, it's a corporate, not like an open software. I think it was quite a surprise for everyone. Everyone was very enthusiastic. Still, a lot of people are using ChatGPT. I will say 900 million weekly users, it's still a lot. But I think here there is a disturber, and I think it's always the same in the IT space. You are the first one to come, and suddenly there is an outsider, which is not really an outsider because it's a well-known company, which is Anthropic. Anthropic has a different philosophy. And if I'm making an analogy, I will say ChatGPT, very similar to Google, very retail oriented. I'm saying this because Google, compared for example to Microsoft, who has been very present on the corporate side, enterprise, has been quite absent. Be more like in the subconscious of people thinking like Google is very retail. I will say we can say the similar things with OpenAI. And on the other side of the spectrum, I will say you have Anthropic. And Anthropic, it's more like enterprise focus for the where it is, more on the regulation side. As we know, not long time ago, for this war in Iran, there's a lot of, I will say, Trump administration has some issue with Anthropic because Anthropic refused to be used as artificial intelligence to condemn the things and using for the war. How's the things going with the drone and everything. So I think this is how it's different, because it's coming from the corporate world. And this is clearly the major difference compared to OpenAI. Now, the question is, how the level of adoptions. And the level of adoptions, I will say, everyone here knows that since 2022, OpenAI make a big push on the adoption side.
So Mark, at the end of the day, we have the investor's lens, right? So I think it's only worthwhile that we discuss a bit of the fundamentals
Correct, yes.
of the two products, or the two companies rather, more generally.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you'd like to run us through how it is that they differ.
Yes, we will put in front of the screen for our audience some figures. Here, interestingly enough, Anthropic was never disclosing the number of active users here. On the annual revenue based on the figures of March 2026, to give an idea, OpenAI was generating 25 billions when nearly double for Anthropic at 47 billions. And we discuss about the penetrations of this. Clearly, on the enterprise side, it's 40% for OpenAI when it's 80% on Anthropic. So clearly here, dominance on the market shares. And like all the investors, I've been always interesting, where are the profitability of the company, and still loss making, and all the news, the headline for the past, I will say, few months, you see the capex, the capital expenditures they have been doing with NVIDIA, partner with this and that. I mean, this is a little bit scary in the way, and I think that's the point. And also that's why when you talk about the business model of Anthropic, is already profit making when OpenAI is not. Now the big questions about when this IPO will start. Not long time ago, Mr. Elon Musk launched the SpaceX. By the way, on the SpaceX, e-package also is LLM model. It was smart enough to say, this is Starlink, this is also the rocket launcher Falcon 9, but included also here some AI. So I think the competition is tough inside the US. So you have Anthropic, OpenAI, plus the LLM model developed by Elon Musk. And outside of this, you have China, who are coming with models who are cheap to run. And as you remember, we did not, I mean, for our audience, we did a video about the chip war, US versus China. And I think it was interesting for our audience. You can check here if you have been interesting, because I think the chip war was an interesting thing. We discussed a lot about NVIDIA versus how the Chinese has this capacity to develop this kind of chip. So clearly here, for audience, I think there is a lot of to say on the IPO side. Probably there will be a certain pause at certain moments, because all the money sucked by SpaceX. It's interesting. By the way, I don't want to make causality on that side, but if we think about the rate, all the money, and why the dollar was so resilient, of course, they fly to quality because of the war in Iran, but also because there is a demand. Based on the size of this IPO, there is a high demand of dollar. So we need to also monitor closely, like we say, about the trajectory of the dollar, because there is a high demand of dollar. So now maybe I will say that Elon Musk launched his IPO, maybe Anthropic or OpenAI are not so keen to do it straight, and waiting a little bit of this, because it will request another high demand of dollar. It's, at the end of the day, it's a question of supply and demand, but the dollar trajectory should also follow, and if you have been following our central bank video, should follow the rate. And in this case, it was more like a demand because of the demand of the IPO.
And Mark, maybe to add a final point before it is we move on from how the two companies differ in their businesses and their customers, etc. I think maybe one observation that I'd like to see if you agree with is that Anthropic likely does not have the amount of users that ChatGPT or OpenAI has. But the amount of usage that they're getting from each user for coding purposes versus for general query purposes might be significantly higher, and that would explain why it is that their revenue would be also nearly double.
Yeah.
Do you think that this makes sense?
It makes a lot of sense because I think we think about the phase one, which is generative AI, and we show on the screen here, which is these technological revolutions on the phase one. But now we are already on the phase two. Before, don't forget, we're coming from a bot side. It was a simple bot, we ask questions, etc. So generative AI, okay, fair enough. The adoption is quite strong. But now we are going another step, which is the agentic AI. And I think clearly here, Anthropic has a edge compared to ChatGPT on that side, putting a lot of elements. So one, which is Anthropic creating an ecosystem. When ChatGPT, it's a generative AI, okay, for sure you can improve the text, etc. But you are not in terms of productivity, like doing like the agent AI, putting in place by Anthropic. So this phase two is really quite impressive, even more impressive than the phase one, I would say.
Mark, and I mean, one major factor that ties into this phase two of agentic AI was something that we saw earlier in the year, the so-called open claw phenomenon, which was basically this open source project that let you host your own agent and connect to any given LLM,
Correct, yes.
where Claude seemed to have been the preferred provider. What do you think about this and how it impacted?
Yeah, like I say, it's clearly a revolution because you put locally, you are putting the agents locally, and you can develop the things that can working, they can code the things. We're talking about Anthropic co-work, also Anthropic code. So clearly, yes, it is for access initially for the developer, but like the people of every day can use it now and building up something incredible that you cannot even imagine 2 or 3, 5 years ago, building up your own ecosystem. And I think this is a revolution, not a revolution for big companies, but for small people like you and I, building up, improving their profitability on their day-to-day and their business. So clearly for me, this phase two of Agent AI, it's a big push for the small and mid-cap company to give them a hedge similar to a big company like any big companies, could be Amazon or Google. So you give access to the normal people this, and they can build up their own ecosystem, connecting, interacting between this. So clearly here, this is like clearly an edge, and I think Anthropic is far well better than ChatGPT on this. Plus, I will say in the subconscious of the people, ChatGPT for them, it's coming from the bot, the generative AI, when now we have a level of sophistications when all the agents can interact, sending email, doing this and that, which is in autonomous way, which is incredible. So I think we have like a simple bot. I will exaggerating and simplify a simple bot, I will say with ChatGPT, but now with Anthropic you have clearly your ecosystem interacting, sending email, calling, organizing your agenda, etc., at a level of sophistication never reached for particular people, for small people like you and I, that initially you need like an army of developers.
So Mark, getting onto the IPO subject now. I mean, both Anthropic and OpenAI have filed for their IPOs, releasing their S1s. We saw with SpaceX that some rules were changed for them to enter straight into the top indices like the Nasdaq. What do you think investors should be looking at for this type of IPO?
Yes, it's a good point you are bringing. This is a question here about passive versus active exposure. I think we can see maybe on the screen that OpenAI and Anthropic filed for an IPO, one in June 8th and the other one on the 1st of June. Now, target listing, they say maybe the end of 26, but the thing it's quite clear here, the narrative of SpaceX will be different in Anthropic and OpenAI. Why? Because it's less concrete than what's going on here on the space IPO. The valuations was like stellar, 1.75, and it's incredible, especially for you, Mike. You are value investors, really checking clearly in detail the footnote, the cash flows, etc. And I will say we can say that the foundations of valuation here clearly. In the name of Graham and Berkshire Hathaway style. When you think about the IPO of SpaceX, it's the valuations. It's like more you discount a dream, going to the space, going to Mars. This is more here than having more rational, and that's why he's smart enough to find a funding for Elon Musk, especially from the retail side, because retail compared to the institutional investors. They like to have a nice story, and I think SpaceX could be the things. That's why I think the debate will be interesting here, because clearly Anthropic seems more professional than OpenAI. OpenAI was all around the news, spending, like we said before, capital expenditure, having a partnership with this company and this company. When I will say Anthropic was more silent and more professional, but it's depending how you try to reach the retail market, like SpaceX did. You need to sell a little bit of dream. But if you are an institutional investors, definitely you will see Anthropic already generating money and be profitable, and you see OpenAI not. So you will come down. But clearly, I think OpenAI has more, for the retail investors, it's more like a star, and it's more like in the style of SpaceX. So question is, yes, definitely if you're an institutional, you prefer Anthropic, and if you are retail, maybe you have a preference for OpenAI. Now the questions to the passive investor versus active investors. If you go like SpaceX directly on the Nasdaq 100, indirectly, all of us, we are participating to this space race. Everyone, take your seat. We are going to Mars soon. Again, so I think it will be a big question. I think probably the size will be smaller than SpaceX. Like I say, it's very emotional. This SpaceX story was very emotional, and that's why Elon Musk was so smart to package rocket, AI, Starlink. He is doing like an ecosystem, which is very similar to Anthropic for professionals. But maybe let's see how's the things going on the adoptions. The adoptions, it's clearly on the ChatGPT and OpenAI, but maybe before the IPO, everyone will use an AI agent building up this and that, and it's not an obscure coding. So I will say, again, for me, conclusion here, it's depending on the capacity of adoptions of everyone to use an agent AI, and it will push naturally in the direction of Anthropic in this case.
So, Mark, finalizing things a bit more from the fundamental perspective as investors, especially relevant for European investors that are a bit further away from this situation.
Correct.
Let's discuss the strength of the moat for a company like OpenAI, a company like Anthropic. And it would be great to understand how that moat has changed in the phases of AI that we discussed, from phase 1 to phase 2. What do you think of this?
In this case, definitely OpenAI has an advantage because they secure the previous request, you get it, and keep it. So for an older, I would say, users of all generations, they feel comfortable with OpenAI and clearly have an advantage. Don't forget, this generation of people, they also have money. So when an IPO will come, maybe they will think. For them, it will be more in the subconscious to think, OpenAI or ChatGPT I'm using every day. I keep control because this is very important. They keep all the discussion high, the prompt. So they profile me in the way. When I will say for Anthropic, it's completely different because you have less control, because definitely this is the agent AI who are taking control of the things. So it's more anonymized, I will say, compared to ChatGPT. And clearly this, it will, the emotional part, like SpaceX IPO, will clearly make a role. And the old generations, the adoptions was slow, probably to the old generations for ChatGPT, but now they're into, when probably the young generations are into Anthropic and more active because it's quite sophisticated. Definitely the old generations will prefer ChatGPT, so it can play a role in the way because they have the money and they will be, yes, this is OpenAI, I'm happy to put money there. So clearly here, they have a captive things from OpenAI when through the old generations. And as we know, the users, Europe, it's quite an aging population. So from an investor perspective, from a European investor perspective, I will say Europe will tend to be more in the direction of ChatGPT than Anthropic, I would say.
Right.
Making it too sophisticated. We are definitely lagging on this LLM race in Europe. So because we are lagging, we are still on ChatGPT, we are still on phase 1, when probably the American and the Chinese already on Agent AI and and Anthropic.
Understood. And this, I think, Mark, we can definitely agree that it will be a very hot topic towards September, October, when these IPOs... next year, when these IPOs go live. And I mean, if that is all, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today and thank Mark again as well. I very much recommend that you check out our other YouTube videos, our LinkedIn, Merrill Investors, as well as our website, merrillfunds.com. I wish you the best and look forward to the next one. Thank you and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.